When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. I remember that moment so clearly, as if it had frozen in time. My hands were trembling, but I held the shawl close to my chest and kept my face calm. I didn't want her to see how much it hurt me. I stood in the doorway of the house I had spent decades building with my family. The walls had heard my laughter, my prayers, and my quiet tears. The kitchen had smelled of the meals I cooked with love, meals that once brought everyone together. And yet that day, I was told I no longer belonged. I looked at my son, hoping he would speak for me, but he remained silent. His eyes avoided mine, and in that silence, I felt a weight heavier than I could describe. I wasn't angry. I was confused. I kept asking myself what I had done wrong. I wondered how love could slowly fade into distance, how familiarity could turn into rejection. I am a grandmother. I gave my life to my children and grandchildren. I thought family meant forever, meant unconditional love. But that day, I realized that even in families, hearts can drift apart. And in that quiet doorway, with the sunlight falling softly on the floor, I took a deep breath and smiled, even though inside my heart was breaking. I raised my children with patience and love in a home that was never rich, but always full of warmth. We didn't have much money, but we had laughter that echoed through the rooms, stories told at the dinner table, and quiet prayers shared before bedtime. Our home was simple, but it was ours, and it held memories that I thought would last forever. When my son got married, I welcomed his wife like my own daughter. I cooked meals she liked, listened to her worries, and tried to make her feel at home. I never wanted to interfere. I only wanted to support her and make our family stronger. And when my grandchildren were born, my heart grew in ways I never imagined. Their tiny hands gripping my fingers, their laughter filling the rooms, I felt useful again. I watched them sleep, I prayed for them, I imagined their futures. Being a grandmother was the happiest role of my life. I thought my place in the family was clear: to love quietly, to help whenever I could, and to be there for my children and grandchildren, without asking for anything in return. I never imagined that my love, my presence, could ever become a problem. The house was once alive with togetherness. Now, there were moments when I felt a subtle distance, a pause in conversation, a glance that lingered too long. I pushed those feelings aside, telling myself that families sometimes have small tensions. I didn't realize that these small signs were the beginning of something much larger, something that would change my life forever. At first, the changes were small. A look that lasted too long, a word that felt sharper than it should, a silence that replaced the laughter we once shared. My daughter-in-law stopped including me in conversations. She began speaking to me only through my son. Sometimes she would say, "You don't need to worry about the children anymore," with a tone that sounded more like dismissal than care. I smiled and nodded, but inside I felt a quiet ache growing. Meals became quieter. The children, once eager to share their day with me, were now distracted, kept busy with screens and activities. Hugs that used to come naturally were now given quickly and withdrawn even faster. I started sitting at the edges of the rooms, trying not to be noticed, trying not to upset anyone. I asked myself so many questions. Had I done something wrong? Was my presence too much? Was I being ignored because I was old, because I no longer fit into their world? I tried harder to stay invisible. I cleaned quietly. I spoke softly. I tried to shrink myself into the background, but no matter how careful I was, the distance only grew. The house felt colder, the rooms quieter, the warmth I had once taken for granted slipping slowly away. And yet I still hoped. I told myself this was temporary, that one day things would return to the way they were. I just didn't know that the moment of true heartbreak was already on its way. The day everything changed was quiet, almost unbearably calm. No shouting, no anger. Just words that cut deeper than any argument could. She looked at me with that calm, measured tone and said, "I think it's better if you live somewhere else." I stared at her, searching for a sign that she was joking. I looked at my son, hoping he would stop her, or at least speak up for me. But he looked down at the floor. He did not say a word. That silence hurt more than her words ever could. In that moment, I felt invisible, erased from the life I had built. All the meals I had cooked, all the nights I had stayed awake worrying about them, all the love I had poured into this family, it felt like it had vanished in an instant. I packed my clothes slowly that evening, each item heavier than the last. Each fold reminded me of birthdays, school days, bedtime stories, quiet moments of laughter. The walls that had once echoed with our happiness now seemed empty, hollow and indifferent. When I stepped out of that house, the door closed softly behind me. No one stopped me. No one said goodbye. And yet, in that quiet closing, the reality hit me fully. I was alone. I walked away with dignity, holding my head high. But inside, my heart ached, breaking quietly, one small crack at a time. Living alone was quiet, too quiet. The nights felt longer than they ever had. The walls around me were still, echoing only my own footsteps. I cried quietly so no one could hear. I replayed memories in my head, small moments of happiness, laughter at the table, bedtime stories with my grandchildren. I wondered if forgiveness would ever come, if my heart would ever heal. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. I learned to make peace with the silence. I learned that sometimes love does not return in the way we expect. I realized that holding on to anger would only make the loneliness heavier. Then one day my phone rang. It was my son. His voice was quiet, almost shaking. "Mom, I'm sorry," he said. Those words did not erase the past. They did not undo the pain, but they reminded me that some connections, even if broken for a while, can start to mend. I chose to forgive, not because it was easy, not because anyone asked me to, but because I deserved peace. I discovered a quiet strength I didn't know I had. Even in rejection, even in heartbreak, I could still find dignity, love, and hope. Today I live a quieter life, but a peaceful one. I wake up with a sense of calm I never knew I could feel after so much hurt. I carry the lessons of the past with me, not anger or regret. I learned that being kind does not mean being weak. I learned that even family can hurt and love can be complicated. But I also learned that your value does not disappear just because someone turns away. If you are listening to my story, remember this: your heart matters, your love matters, and sometimes walking away quietly, holding your dignity close, is the strongest thing you can do. Life will continue, and even when doors close, new paths will open. Hope can bloom quietly, even in the spaces left by those we thought would always stay. And through it all, your heart can remain gentle, brave, and full of love.